Hey guys, it's Shay from Wonderfully Chaotic, and if you didn't see my earlier video, the part 1 of this video series, I guess, make sure you watch it first. It goes into a lot of detail about my molar pregnancy, my surgery, and the diagnosis of it. This is part 2, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things, my recovery, the complications of it, and just some resources, I hope, for people who have gone through this. So I'm going to link part 1 below if you haven't watched it already, and watch that one first, and then we're just going to dive right into this one. So at the end of my last video, I just had my DNC surgery. So after that, I spent, probably, that was on a Monday, and I spent a good portion of that week kind of resting, recovering, either resting in bed or like in the recliner in our living room, because, you know, when you're a mom and you have other kids, you don't necessarily get to just like lay in bed all day, even if you're sick. So I did have help. My parents, my grandma, some of our close friends brought food or stopped by. My mother-in-law, they brought us some dinners, came and like entertained the kids for a little bit, took them outside, just kind of entertained them so I could like take a nap or whatever. I wasn't really in a huge amount of pain or anything, but I was very tired. I was overly emotional. My legs just felt like jelly, which everybody reacts to anesthesia differently, and that seemed to be like one of my reactions, is that I just felt like I couldn't get up and around very well. We hadn't told the world at large everything, since everything was so up and down, and I really didn't like know what to share with people. So like not a lot of people knew what was going on with us. So by Friday of that week, I'd had the surgery on Monday. By Friday, I felt much better physically. Was getting around better, not feeling like, you know, like I couldn't walk or whatever. Emotionally, not so much, but I'll get to that in a little bit. I had several checkups after that to make sure that everything was back to normal, to get a good look at the blood work and everything, to make sure that all of my levels were dropping the way they needed to be, because with a pregnancy like this, you have to make sure that you are completely not pregnant anymore after that, because that molar tissue, if you don't get all of it, it can continue to grow and become tumorous again. So you have to make sure that all of that is completely gone and that it doesn't grow back anymore. So now I'm going to talk about some of the other things, the complications and things that go along with this. I've had such a strange mixture of emotions for the past few months, I guess now. You know, I've had anxiety and sadness and anger and confusion and just a whole a bunch of stuff. So I've had to acknowledge several things through this. I've had to acknowledge the fact that I have experienced a pregnancy loss. You know, this baby that I was looking forward to stopped developing and died in the womb. And I could not even hardly say that a couple weeks ago without like breaking down. I know that it was very early, but I had already kind of begun planning, because that's just what I do. From the moment I find out I'm pregnant, I'm pretty excited. There's been a couple times where I'm like, oh, nervous, but, you know, I download my little pregnancy app and, you know, figure out my due date and start calculating all these different things and thinking about things. And so I had to open up my little pregnancy app, and I had to select, I've had a loss, and remove that from my phone. And I have a friend who makes clothes and earrings, and she has one of those little machines where she can make shirts like with sayings and stuff on them. Like, I know what the word is for it, but I just can't think of it right now. Anyway, she has her own business and she's really awesome. And so I, like 2 days after we found out I was pregnant, I ordered a onesie off of her. I had this great idea that I'd actually seen someplace else, and we kind of made it our own, and it was this little onesie, and I was going to have the onesie at the cookout on Mother's Day and show it to everybody. And it was like a joke about maybe this being the last one, but probably not. And because, you know, we're just so loosey-goosey with the amount of children that we have, you know, you have to, the bug on me. You have to kind of laugh about it when you have a big family, because people are like, how many more are you going to have? And don't you know what causes that? And blah, blah, blah. So it was just kind of a funny little joke. And so I had to contact her. I didn't have to. I chose to contact her and tell her, like, kind of a little bit about what was going on. And she was super sweet and super nice. And Andrea, thank you for that. That was very helpful. She was just very compassionate and kind and said, you know, I can just hold this back if you want. But I went ahead and got it. And now it is tucked away in a little baby clothes storage container that I've had for years and years, of like my favorite baby things I've kept from the kids, and recycle them on to the next child. So, you know, I'm hopeful that eventually it will get to be worn by someone. So yeah, I've had to acknowledge that I am now a bereaved mother. And that kind of leads into my next thing that I've had to acknowledge, which is that I have kind of taken my fertility for granted somewhat. I've always been very blessed and fortunate in the childbirth, fertility, baby department. I've never really had to try to get pregnant. It just, I hate to say it just happens, because that sounds so stupid, but I've had 6 kids that I've given birth to without complication. I have a stepdaughter. They're all living and breathing, and they're beautiful human beings. I've never had to struggle with infertility, other than a very brief time where I took a type of birth control, and it took a really long time to get out of my system. And that was super frustrating, but it was not anything compared to what other people have been through, where they've been through years and years and treatment after treatment and things like that. It's nothing compared to that. I've never had to use any kind of medical intervention to get pregnant. There are people that have had so many more challenges and struggles, or who've never been able to carry a pregnancy at all. There are moms who have had babies that have been stillborn, babies who have died from SIDS. And I cannot even begin to imagine their pain and the heart-wrenching type of grief that they've experienced. And I've just really had to take a long, hard look at that, because I think that I did kind of take it for granted somewhat, that things were just easy. And not that I've ever, like, scoffed at anybody who's went through stuff like that, but I know that, like, in October, when there's like baby loss awareness and miscarriage awareness, I've just kind of always thought, oh, well, you know, that doesn't apply to me, because I've never experienced that. And I don't want you to think that I have, like, made fun of or been, I don't know what the right word is for it, like, just kind of ignored it, because I've never done that. Because I've had friends who have went through miscarriages and I've supported them. But, you know, I've had to experience it now, and that makes a difference. It really does make a difference to actually go through something than just to read about it or just to hear about it. You know, when you actually have went through it, it makes a big difference. Also, kind of going along with that, I was talking about how there are a lot of people who have had it worse than I have. But I've also had to acknowledge that I am still allowed to have pain. I am one who is quick to look at other people's suffering and say, well, mine's not so bad. Because I feel like I'm a pretty kind person, a pretty compassionate person. I have a lot of empathy for other people. And I'm very quick to be like, well, maybe they're having a bad day. Like if somebody's mean to me or something like that. I don't know. That's just kind of my nature. But I have had to have people reassure me that I'm allowed to be sad, that my having a bunch of kids does not negate my loss any. Loss is loss, pain is pain, regardless of whether you've had 1,200 children. Obviously you can't, but I'm allowed to do those things, even though I have other children. And I felt like I was being selfish for being like, oh, I lost a baby, when there's people who have lost, you know, baby after baby after baby, or who can't get pregnant, or whatever thing. I am still allowed to feel things. I'm still allowed to be sad, or to be angry, or to be confused. It's okay to feel that way, and to have feelings, period. It's okay. Does that mean I should live in those feelings forever? No, but it's okay to allow them and to feel them. I've also had to acknowledge that this world is very weird about miscarriages and baby loss. People don't know what to say, or they don't want to talk about it at all, or they say wrong, crappy things. A lot of times it's not necessarily the person's fault. Like they want to be helpful, or they just don't know what to say, so they say something. And I found this to be true about a lot of things, like having a large family. A lot of times people don't necessarily know what to say to you, so they just say something like, don't you know how that happens? Or you sure got your hands full? Or one of the other like bazillion things that people say when we go places. So I've tried not to take it to heart too much when people say stuff that I might not necessarily think is so nice or so helpful. You know, they are just trying to be helpful in their own way. There have not been any people to me that have said things like mean or nasty, really. I have had a few people be like, well, you know, you need to shrug it off. You have other kids. You should be grateful for what you have. I have had that happen a little bit, and that's been a little frustrating to me because I am grateful. Just because I'm sad or upset for a time period does not mean that I'm not grateful. So that was kind of frustrating. But otherwise, most people that have said stuff, they don't necessarily mean it mean. Like when they say, you know, well, you can have another one, you know, they're trying to be helpful. And as frustrating as it is, you know, it's good that people want to help and be supportive. So if you are a person who wants to be helpful, who wants to be supportive to someone who's going through a miscarriage, a baby loss, something, a death in their family, a death of a spouse, of a grandparent, of whoever, here are things that you can say. You can say, I'm sorry that you're going through this. You can say, I'm praying for you. How else can I help? You can say, I am so sorry for your loss. This really sucks. Can I help you with food? Can I order something for you? Can I watch your kids? Can I get you something from the store? Be specific, because when somebody is in grief or trouble or stress, they don't have time to think about all the little details of stuff, or they can't think about the little details. They can't process them because their brain is so consumed with grief or stress. I know this is true after having a baby, after a death in the family. You can't even think hardly at all. So it's helpful to say something specific, like, what time could I come over to watch the kids for a little bit? I'm going to order you groceries. I'm going to pick you up some food from town. What time should I come by? Just, can I come over and do dishes? Whatever, something specific, because if you just say, let me know if you need some help, they're probably not going to ever ask you for help because it takes too much of their brain power. Just acknowledging that it's hard. That has to be hard. Do you want to talk about it? Do you feel like talking? You know, don't pressure them into anything, but Just be open, be there for them. You can even tell them, I don't know what to say, but I'm here to support you. Those things don't go unnoticed. I will forever be grateful to the people who say those things. And I know that others would too, if you know someone going through that. I have had to acknowledge that I have experienced some difficulties. Ever since this has happened, I have felt like everything, at the beginning anyway, I felt like everything made me cry. Kind of like after you have a baby, you know, you have those baby blues at first. This is an area that I deal with a lot as a doula and as somebody who has been very vested in maternal mental health. I've done a lot of studying on maternal mental health. So you would think that somebody who knows a lot about maternal mental health would be quick to, I hate to say diagnose themselves, but to recognize the things that are going on with them. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes when it's yourself, it's harder to deal with, I think, rather than looking at somebody else and what they're doing. So I was moody and quick to get mad or upset. I was struggling with anxiety and panic attacks, and the kids were keeping me busy during the day, and then at the end of the day, my mind would not settle down, and I couldn't sleep, and I kept having all these intrusive thoughts coming in and creeping in. It was very frustrating. And not being able to sleep, and then every morning you just want to like crawl back into bed and sleep for like 700 years, and you're tired but you can't sleep. And I can recognize all that for what it is, you know, symptoms that happen after a miscarriage and a loss, and especially when you have rapid hormonal changes. It's like a postpartum depression, anxiety type thing, but that doesn't make it any easier. I had hoped that it was just temporary and that it would, you know, once things leveled off and everything, that it would, you know, take care of itself. But I've had to acknowledge that that's not how it's going to be, and that I was going to have to deal with it other ways. And so I spoke with the doctor about it, and she gave me options, and I have struggled very hard with them. I will be very honest. I have struggled because I just want to be okay and I want to be fine, and it doesn't work that way. You can't just say, I want to be fine and be fine. Maybe it does for some people, but it doesn't for me. My husband has been on the ball about checking in with me and making sure I'm okay, and just making sure that things are, that I'm doing all right. And if I could say anything to you out there that's going through this, it's talk to people about it. Don't keep it inside. Don't keep it balled up, because that makes it 1,000 times worse. And you can even, if you're watching this, you can talk to me. I've been there, and you can message me. You can leave me a comment and leave me your email address, and I will talk to you about it, because it's very hard. And it is so hard when you want things to be normal and life just keeps going on, because that's the crappy thing about death and stress and everything like that, is that life does not stop for that. You feel like your world stops, but life itself does not stop. Everything just keeps going on, and activities keep happening, and jobs happen, and you know, the kids have needs, and sometimes it's just so frustrating because you want everything to just slow down and be like, hey, I had this happen, I need the world to stop for a little bit, and it doesn't. And that's frustrating and scary. And if you need somebody to talk to about that, I'm here. And there's other people that love you and care about you, and they will listen to you. Don't do what I did and ball it all up inside and then have it come spewing out. So there are things that you can do to help with that. There is therapy, there is drugs, there is all kinds of good things. Talking to people, support groups, all kinds of good things that can come to help with that. So the last thing I'm going to talk about pretty much is that I've also had to acknowledge that there can be serious complications to molar pregnancy. A molar pregnancy is the most common form of gestational trophoblastic disease, which is GTD. In some cases, the tissue from the molar tumor can continue to grow and it can become cancerous. The tumor can spread to other parts of the body. Some women have to do chemotherapy or they end up having a hysterectomy, which is scary. So after having surgery, your blood HCG levels have to be monitored by your doctor until they are to a certain level for a consistent period of time. Many doctors recommend waiting to get pregnant again, sometimes a year or more, but that is not always the case. It depends a lot on your personal medical history, your personal case. I would say it's more of a case-by-case basis because some people have more serious things happen than others. Some people go really far along into their pregnancy with this molar pregnancy, and it's much more difficult to get rid of. So in my case, all of my levels and everything dropped consistently, normally, and it was very easily taken care of. But that is not always the way it is for lots of people. You definitely need to discuss it with your doctor and see what their recommendation is because, as I said, each person's case is different. I've seen so many varying opinions online and in books and stuff now that I've read more into it about how long you should wait, about the complications and how long it takes and what kind of things you need to do. I want to note that many women can live healthy lives after they have a molar pregnancy. They can go on to have a healthy pregnancy and a birth. Here is a little fact. Nearly 100% of women with complete or partial molar pregnancies and low-risk gestational GTD, which is the trophoblastic disease, can be cured of their disease with appropriate treatment. Even for the high-risk ones, the cure rates are as high as 80 to 90%, but they will probably require some more intensive treatment. That is from the American Cancer Society. So even if you have this, there is a very high chance that you're going to be okay and that you can even go on to have another pregnancy after this. Just because you have one does not mean that you are doomed for the rest of your fertile years, but everyone is different. So you need to consult with your doctor about your unique situation. And also, getting pregnant afterwards, there is a whole myriad of emotions and feelings that you're going to have, and worries, concerns. So that is something you also need to talk to your doctor and your support people about, is how you are feeling if you do decide to have another pregnancy, about all of those things, because you are naturally going to be more worried and concerned and scared because of this experience that you've just had. So that's something to keep in mind. Going through a molar pregnancy can feel very lonely and very frightening because there's so many people who do not know anything about it. I did not even really know that much about it, and I've done childbirth studies and I'm a doula and I've learned all of these different things about pregnancy and birth, and I didn't even really know that much about it. So I'm going to talk about a few resources, and then I'm going to list them in the description box below so that you can just go straight to them. You can talk to your doctor or find a counselor, a therapist, pastor at your church, a nurse, a support person, whoever. Talk to somebody about this that you're going through. Don't just Google it and hope for the best. You know, you want to talk to people who are going to help you. So, some resources. The March of Dimes has a page on molar pregnancy that is just a very basic overview. This is what I sent to people when we were talking about it, so they would know what it was. I would just kind of send them that link. The American Cancer Society has a very in-depth look at the types of molar pregnancies. It has a lot of information and facts, as well as cancer support. If this is something that develops more and into cancer, where you have to have treatments and things like that, there is a lot of support for that on there. There is a page about molar pregnancy from the Miscarriage Association. It has information on it, as well as emotional support and just general information about miscarriages in general. It's very helpful. There is a whole site called My Molar Pregnancy that is dedicated to information, education, and resources. And they also have like personal stories on there, and they have support groups through Facebook that are very helpful. I had joined one way back in May, the beginning of May. I had found one on there and was like reading people's stories and things that they'd gone through, and that was helpful in a way because you could see people's successes and people's challenges and real life people, not just, you know, a textbook. There's also a page from the March of Dimes that is about dealing with grief after the death of your baby. And they have a little booklet that they will send out to you too, that you can read like on your own time, that helps you find ways to cope and deal and talk to people. And it's very helpful. And then from Postpartum Support International, there's a page that is about loss and grief in pregnancy and postpartum. And it is also very helpful if you are dealing with anxiety and depression and, you know, just these things after something like this. That page is very helpful. And so I just want to close up here and just say thank you for listening. If you are going through something like this, like I said, please know that you are not alone, even though it may feel like it somewhat out in the big wide world. Just know that you are not alone, and that there are resources and things to help you, and I'm here. If nothing else, I'm here to listen to you. I want to thank you guys for listening and supporting my channel. And if you find this helpful, or if you know somebody that would find this helpful, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that means it's almost time for the video to be over when I start talking crazy. Yeah, just hit the like button and let me know if this is something that you like or appreciate, and you can forward it along to somebody you know if you think that would be helpful. Share it with a friend. And if you'd like to see more from our channel, you can subscribe. I promise it's not always just me sitting here talking to the camera trying not to cry. We post lots of other videos about our large family life and fun things that we do, and trips and field trips and homeschooling and all kinds of fun stuff. So please stick around if you're interested, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.